Chapter 9, Hot in Here. I was at a photo shoot one day. The photographer was a lesbian, and I won't mention her name because I don't know whether or not she's out of the closet. Kevin and I were at this shoot for a party that he was throwing at the Roxy. While the photographer was getting her stuff prepared, she handed me a magazine, One Nut. She flipped it open and asked me to read this one particular article. I started reading it, and I said, this is very interesting. I'm bringing this to the radio. The article talked about a gay rapper, which was something I had seen frequently in this business. But this article totally explained the ins and outs, so to speak, of the gay lifestyle and the whole controversy behind the gay rapper. So I brought it to the station and read it over the air. I was working at Hot 97. I was back at the place where I started in New York. It was now a hip hop station, but was in the same place I had worked, 1372 Broadway, in the late 80s. It was the same place where my cocaine habit took full bloom. On my first day back at Hot, I walked into the bathroom. Not to get high, but to actually use the bathroom. And I'll be damned if that heating register wasn't still broken on the wall. I guess I hit it so hard with my big body that they couldn't fix it and just threw away the metal piece and never ordered another one. It was a terrible, terrible, gruesome reminder of not only who I used to be, but also who I still was. And all I thought was, oh my God, I can't wait to write my book and tell this story. It wasn't time then because I was still sniffing and smoking. But I was back now with a vengeance. I was back at the top of my game. MS Broadcasting purchased Kiss FM. It already owned Hot, which was the same format. So when they purchased Kiss, they changed the format to the oldies, and they brought me and DJ Red Alert from Kiss to Hot, which was slowly taking over hip hop. I came back in the afternoon drive, which next to mornings is the most listened to 4 hours on the radio. And in just a short period, my show was one of the highest rated in the city. I was already very controversial and very successful. But boy, did this gay rapper thing set something off. Do we know who the gay rapper is? I spoke to the writer, and he just made up a story about a gay rapper. This story wasn't one man's story. It was a composite. You're not supposed to sit there and try to figure out who the gay rapper is, but learn from the message of the story. But all people cared about was, who is the gay rapper? That wasn't the question, because going to industry parties, I can point to two handfuls of gay rappers and another five fingers of lesbians. This is so commonplace in this business. But I so love sharing that story of the gay rapper with my public. That was phenomenal. One half of the folks were saying, great, great, great. The other half were saying, shut up, you bitch. I was mostly getting the shut up, bitch from the artists themselves. Perhaps I was hitting a nerve. It seemed during this time, the mid 90s, everybody was on the edge. Everybody was super sensitive. The bling bling era had started. People had taken off their leather medallions and the acts like Jungle Brothers and De La Soul were fading quickly, replaced by something called gangster rap. People were rimming up their cars and buying expensive jewelry, and the stakes were getting high. A few years prior, while I was still at KISS, the whole Puff Daddy City College tragedy went down, where several people were crushed to death trying to get into a charity basketball event. I was supposed to cover it. The day before, Puffy and Heavy D had come up to the station to talk about the event. KISS was one of the sponsors of the game and gave it a lot of radio time. I was supposed to make an appearance, cheering on the sidelines. I got off the air that Saturday at 6, and Skell and Bulge and I hopped in the car to go uptown. I had on my Reeboks and cheerleader skirt. I was ready. When we got to the block where City College is, the streets were crazy. Ambulances were everywhere, and people were running wild. When I got home that night, I heard that 8 people were killed and 29 injured when they shut the doors and refused to let people in. They had oversold the event, and Puffy was in the middle of it all. Oh my God. It was just one more thing to talk about and one more thing to be paranoid about in terms of the volatility of the streets and hip hop specifically. I started making sure that when I was on appearances that I was perched next to a working exit door. I would never make my paranoia known, but Bulge and the guys knew the deal, what we were doing and why. We also made a habit of parking in the garage not close to the club or venue. If something jumped off, everybody would be rushing to that parking lot. Few people would be going down the street where we were parked. The culture of hip hop had changed. People were sneaking guns into clubs. Folks were getting shot on the street for stepping on new sneakers and stabbed in clubs for nothing. Fights were breaking out. It was a little scary. I had even been at a club where shots rang out on the other side of the club and there was a bum rush. Bulge got me a bulletproof vest to wear on my appearances. I was already paranoid from the cocaine and I wasn't taking any chances. I even had a minor brush when a washed up rapper, I don't even think she was ever big enough to even be washed up, named Boss, sent a dead fish in a shoebox to me at the station as a warning. I had apparently said something about her on the air, and she didn't like it. Just as hip hop was changing, I was changing the face of radio with my style. I wasn't taking soft I wasn't talking soft and quiet stormish. I wasn't talking smooth. I wasn't talking happy, happy girl next door. I was gossiping and talking shit. I went from recapping what happened on Dynasty to recapping what happened in the clubs to talking about what was really going on with the stars of hip hop. My popularity was intense because the industry was changing. Artists were marking their territory. Lyrics were getting more and more violent. Rappers were going platinum, selling 1 million albums. Even in their heyday, Big Daddy Kane and Rakim were struggling to go gold. A lot of the drug dealers of the 80s were now power brokers of the 90s hip hop. The shit was uglier and uglier, and I was just steadily yapping. Every day I was in the middle of a battle, whether it was me and Little Kim, me and Tretch, me and Mary J. Blige, me and Sally Richardson, or me and Puffy. Actresses, actors, rappers, singers, no one was exempt from my yapping. And the listeners loved to hate. They were listening, and that was fueling it and made me keep going even more. The days, the day of the hoochies had arrived. Now hoochies and groupies have been a part of entertainment since the dawn of time. But now when a hoochie got jumped or was done wrong, she had a forum, a place to speak out. My show. She could pick up the phone and tell all. Sometimes I would even put her on the air. It was getting really heated. I started noticing different artists giving me the screw face if I was backstage at a station concert or out at an event. People were taking things very personally, too personally. Around the time that things were heating up for me in the streets, Kevin came into my life. That was a blessing. With him by my side, I didn't really care about the backlash I was I was getting. When you have a team, even when the world is against you, you feel like there is nothing you can't do. Above and beyond everything, Kevin made me fearless. I had boyfriends in the past who cared for me very much. Hell, my parents make me feel loved and comforted. But at the end of the day, who's that nigga who's gonna be there for me when I need a nigga, not a fucking hug? Kevin was that nigga. He made me feel that there was nothing that I couldn't accomplish. He made me feel that if anybody wanted to front on me with money at a club, he had my back. If anybody wanted to front on me at my job, he had my back. Not necessarily through thug means. He would say, "Baby, I got you. Rest on a nigga, trust me." And I did. It was nice to hear and know that I could. I never wanted to test it, but there came a point where I had to. The gay rapper shit came to a head, as did some other things behind the scenes. During a Hot 97 Summer Jam concert, I was on stage hosting and getting booed to high heaven. I found it amusing. To me, all those boos represented listeners, so I kept on talking. But backstage, one of my bosses decided he would lower the curtain right onto my head. The curtain was heavy velvet with a thick metal rod along the base. The boos were replaced by laughter. I didn't care about the booing, but the curtain being dropped on my head by a boss was something else altogether. It was clear that I had no support at all from the powers that be at my station. I clearly saw that the second my numbers dropped, they would drop me. I clearly saw that I was not the darling of Hot 97, even if I was bringing in the revenue. So when I started getting heated with the booze, this boss who was backstage lowered the curtain. It hurt very much, both physically and emotionally, because I believe this bastard did it on purpose, even though he apologized and said it was an accident. And I knew it was the beginning of the end. I started noticing that people around the hot offices didn't quite know how to approach me. I've met people since then who still work there who told me some of the talk that was going on. One guy who gave tours around the hot station told me he came by the booth while I was on the air and told the tour, "Oh, that's Wendy Williams." And one of my coworkers who was nearby said, "Yeah, you know she's a bitch. Just leave her alone. Don't even think about opening the door." A bitch? I had never done anything to this coworker, but that was even I had never done anything to this coworker that was even remotely bitchy, nor had I been a bitch in front of him. But when I heard it, I kind of liked that, even if the image was getting me in trouble at my station. I was on a roll. I had a website that featured pictures of some high powered executives and a rapper in a compromising position. I was talking about the relationship making implications, coming right out and dishing all the dirt. I was telling it all about everybody. No one was exempt. There was a piece printed in the gossip section of the New York Daily News about one of my coworkers' then boyfriend. I read it over the air, giving my usual and oh child pleases and making implications about his sexuality. The funny thing is, there had never been any problems with this coworker before, at least not on my part. But apparently there had been a little something brewing that I had no idea about on her part. After I read the daily news piece, adding my 2 cents, I hear all this screaming in the hallway. My coworker approached me screaming, "You always talking," and blah, blah, blah. My shift was going on, but I wasn't physically on. I have not run my own boards in years. Skeletor was running the boards, so I was hanging in the hall. There was yelling and girly shoving, but no fists, no blows, no blood. This is probably the most asked question. People constantly want to know about the Hot 97 situation and the fight. The best thing I can tell you about Hot 97 in a nutshell is that I have no enemies at that station, and I haven't for a long time, from the highest position to the lowest. I have no enemies over there, not even Angie Martinez. I don't believe Angie hates me, and I don't hate her. Did we fight? No, we didn't. This is my first time actually talking about Angie because there is so much there that people can make out of it, and so much of which is really nothing. Let the girl live. She is not bothering me, and I'm not bothering her. If I saw her at a party, I'm not sure that we would hug, but I wish her well. And I actually liked her last album. Angie and I never had a problem until the end. In fact, I never had problems with any females that I worked with, from my teachers, Yvonne Mobley, Carol Ford, and Champagne, to the people I was supposed to teach, like Angie Martinez and Coco. But today, with the jealous bitches biting my style, it is a different story. I had to wait 15 years in this business to find absolute bullshit dealing with women in my career. But that wasn't the case with Angie. It was all a big misunderstanding. So, Angie, here is a shout out to you that I won't make on the radio because people would make more of it than it is. But I wish you much continued success. Could we work together again? Sure. We each have our own space, as it always was. Business is business, and a true professional moves on, learns something, and keeps a little feather tucked under their cap as a reminder. You never dwell on the past, but you must learn from it. I'm a grown ass woman. I learn my lessons and keep moving. The so called fight with Angie was the last straw for my bosses. Actually, it was an opportunity for them. They had been getting pressure from powerful people in the music industry to shut me up. The best way to sum it up is Sean Puffy Combs was a very powerful man back then. And while he was not necessarily more sensitive than anyone else, I singled out for gossip, he was wealthier and more powerful. If you turn on Hot 97 during any given hour, 6 of the 8 songs played would be songs either produced or performed by Puffy, from Biggie to 112 to Total to Faith to Mace to Junior Mafia and Little Kim. He owned radio, and he was hard to ignore. And I knew with each word I spoke, I was practically writing my own ticket out of town. As long as I was producing the numbers, I did my job and kept on yapping. But the controversy, coupled with the rich and powerful applying even more pressure, finally did the trick. I was called into the boss's offices and told I would be taken off the air if I did not change my style, which was not happening. They were asking me to become something different. I wasn't trying to hear it or sit out like some first grader being punished. Instead, I sued them and I packed up my shit and moved to Philly. Unfortunately, people, because of a lawsuit in terms of that agreement, I cannot tell you all the sordid details. But please know of the gag order. But please know if the gag order is ever lifted, I'm blabbing everything. I won an unprecedented lawsuit that had to be so far researched by my attorney that the only comparison was a case with Warner Wolf, a sports anchor from WNBC Channel 4. And with the victory, I had to be quiet. I was number one when I left New York. And some may say, how could a station let their number one jock walk? When you're a radio station and you're being beaten by a competing station, you buy them off. When I was at Kiss, I was whipping Hot's ass. So they buy Kiss and bring me over to Hot. They change Kiss to oldies, and that kills the competition. WBLS had fallen so far off the map at this point. They weren't even in the running. During the mid to late 90s, if your favorite music was hip hop and R&B, there was only one place to go, Hot 97. And because they had no competition, I guess they figured, why do we need to pay this bitch? We will win at we will win that time spot no matter who's sitting in it. They were basically right. I never got fired. That was another big misconception that people were still getting twisted. When I was taken off the air, I had a considerable amount of time left on my contract, and they would call me in to do commercials. My commercial time was so short that I could literally double park in front of the station, run up, do my commercials, and get back before I got a ticket. But when you're an on air radio personality who isn't on air, you might as well be dead. And I'm too smart of a bitch to take a paycheck and go to Bloomingdale's while somebody tries to kill my career. Initially, I figured if they were willing to pay me big bucks to do commercials, I had no problem with that. I figured it would blow over and I would be back on the air in no time. But a week stretched into two, and by the time it headed to three, I thought, wait a fucking minute. These motherfuckers are really trying to kill my career. Thank God for Kevin and my mentality. We are not whores for money. I could have been on television a long time ago if I were a whore for money. But I wasn't willing to compromise or change to fit into somebody else's box just for the money. I would have stayed in New York under some very precarious conditions, probably still at Hot 97. A lot of things would have been different for me if I were a whore for the money. And I don't mean physically a whore for the money, but willing to compromise my integrity and who I am for a dollar. Kevin told me, Wendy, you're trying to build something that's bigger than this picture. And you don't want somebody digging into your past history and saying, she took X amount to do this. So all you gotta do is come to her with the right amount. That shit catches up to you and then you have no integrity. And all the guys got at the end of the day is your word and your balls. That's all you got. And once you break your word and somebody breaks your balls, you've got nothing. So I basically told Hot 97 to fuck themselves. The first sign that you have told someone fuck you, I mean business, is to stop taking their money. I only took Hot's money and laid all the good commercials for about 3 weeks, a paycheck and a half. I told them, you can stop the money now, motherfuckers. We are officially at war. When you tell people, particularly white people, that they can keep their money, I'd rather fucking concentrate on this lawsuit. I'm trying to get out of my contract because you motherfuckers think that we're all slaves to somebody. White people, people in general, almost lose their minds. They think that money is the end all be all. Well, it's not. They had built they had built into my contract a non-compete, which prevented me from taking another job in New York City for a period of 8 months. 8 months off the air could be death for a career like mine. I had only two choices: stay in New York and die or move on. I took my word and my integrity and went to Philly. It started out as a 1 week fill in on the legendary morning show that had started to fail the radio station miserably. The same team had been together for 15 years. I had no idea really what they did there. When you live in New York, you don't give a fuck about what anybody else is doing. You're on top. Why look anyplace else? All those people want to be where you are. So I went down there with that mentality. When this week is up, that's a wrap. But that week turned into a full-time offer. I couldn't work in New York for 8 months. Most radio stations negotiate these non-compete clauses for 3 months. But you know you're the shit when your non-compete is more than 6 months, and you're really the shit if it's more than a year. My 8 months was considered a big deal. So rather than sit home and watch my career die, I took the job in Philly. Kevin said, fuck it, let's break. Let's break out a new territory. Fuck it. We'll go down there. We'll turn it out. And it's not far from New York. We can do this. And I believed him. I wasn't there but a hot minute before shit started happening. My first week on the job, I found out that I had a miscarriage, unbeknownst to anybody. And in my third week, my new boss pulled me into her office and said, Wendy, I don't want you to be a dinosaur. You have to change your style. Change? Dinosaur? And I wasn't getting it from her. The hate in Philly during my and I wasn't just getting it from her. The hate in Philly during my first few months was incredible. When I first got there, they did this survey. 90% of listeners had heard of me due to the proximity to New York. But of that 90%, 70% hated me. The station was getting calls like, oh, my cousin lives in Hempstead, and he said this big mouth bitch is nothing but trouble. And this was even before I was officially on the air. But I watched those numbers turn in a matter of months, and my approval ratings started to flip. You could say you proved yourself when you go to a whole new city and do the damn thing. And I proved myself. When I got there, the morning show in Philly was number 15. By the time I left, we were number one sometimes, alternating with the Howard Stern show for the top spot. Some books, we were number three, and Howard was number two. In other words, I was doing the damn thing. And when we left reluctantly because Philly became family. When we left with a sea of love. It was good, and that made coming back to New York all the more sweet. I came back from a positive situation into a full circle moment. Going to Philly was the best thing that could have happened to me. I went to Philly under some questionable circumstances, and I turned that city out. And when I came back, instead of the drama I left, I came back to open arms. People were hungry for the experience. They missed Wendy Williams. Bitches had an open line in New York for 4 years. They could have come and taken over the spot I once held and made it impossible for me to come back and reclaim my crown. Bitches already on the radio. Bitches who wanted to be on the radio. Rap bitches who failed in the music business and were now trying the radio thing. None of them made the kind of mark that would dethrone me. There have been many imitators. For 4 years, the spot was open. Yes, that station was still number one during that time, but they were the only game in town. It wasn't through quality and great personalities, it was because they had no competition. When I came back, I had no idea what to expect. But me and my people, we missed each other, and we cried when I came back. I was getting calls from people who were 17 when I left, who were now in their 20s and missed me dearly. When I came back, that was some true love. I have a relationship with each and every listener from 18 to 84. I am a big sister. I am a peer. I am a mother along with other mothers now. I am a wife in the struggle of working women. I am a daughter. I am an ex addict. I have so much in common with so many different people that it's overwhelming to me. Even after a year, people were still saying, welcome back, Wendy. Women and niggas had 4 years to shit or get off the pot, and no one was able to fill these size 11s. There have been others who have left the city and come back to a lukewarm reception. You have the chicks who try to imitate me, and people are flipping on them and prodding me, expecting me to have the same immaturity that I had before. I left and come after them. But we don't need to bash others in order to make our experience great. The old Wendy sure would have, sure. But the new Wendy, well, I couldn't be all the way mature. Now could I? How boring is that? So I slip into pettiness from time to time to keep the game interesting. You know how some people stop smoking cigarettes and then become like the worst anti cigarette people out there? I'm not like that. They would say to the smoker, oh, you could get cancer. Well, I would say to them, motherfucker, let me live my life. I know what you went through. Even though I am a recovering addict, I'm not around wagging my finger at people who I see on the stuff. That's not my place. Like Mary J. Blige, she was ahead, and God bless her for quitting. But she's so saintly now. Where's the fun? And with my personality, it's the same way. The new Wendy is more compassionate, more pink, background music please, more soft, but every now and then she has to let a little of that old Wendy shine. Now take that, bitches.